The whole a half part of the day, afternoon to evening, that has gone by, we have heard about AI, ML, technology, and something like this must be coming your way, right? A virtual reality glass on your eyes, and you all must be predicting the future of finance. So let me add a flavor to that with a topic which is reshaping the budgeting and forecasting with the help of AI, ML, and the big data. Hello everyone, I'm Bharat Agrawal. I'm the Director of Finance for South Asia, Diversey. For those who don't know Diversey, we are the manufacturers of machine and chemical in the space of hygiene and cleaning. Just to show off, the property that we're sitting right now is the one taken care by Diversey in terms of the cleaning that you see here. With that, I will move on to the next. And yeah, I think I just showed you, right? If you all are free from the books, we can just, I would need your 5-10 minutes, please. I just made this video yesterday night, spending 2 hours, so I just thought I'll pull your attention here. So we all saw about how the future of finance looks like, how the budgeting and forecasting can be done with the power of AI ML. I tried putting a video for you, if everything goes well, how the world looks like. Can I have the video playing here? So, thank you. I'm sure Jen will find a new job for sure. But what point it helps us or drive here is that we, in spite of doing whatever we want to do, there has to be a right balance between human intelligence and artificial intelligence. So in next couple of slides, I'm going to talk about how it's going to work, right? We all are in this journey. We heard from all big organizations in terms of what Unilever doing, what Tata doing. We heard from some of the experts in this space. But I'm sure before coming here, last couple of days, I was talking with almost 7 organizations, major organizations, in terms of how do they do their budgeting and forecasting with the help of whatever they do. And I realized most of them are at a different stage of their journey. I remember joining a metal company in the year 2008. And for me, the budgeting that time used to take around 3 to 4 months. It has to be an affair which takes right from 3 to 4 months in terms of executing the entire budget and then preparing a doc, and which used to go to the senior management. So I'm going to take you through this journey in terms of where we stand. Only few slides. What's AI, ML, big data? You heard enough about it. I'll spend a very less time here. Journey of the forecasting, where we stand in terms of the different stages. Good and not so good things about what we're going to talk about. And finally, some do's and don'ts from my side for you to take away. Okay, what's AI, ML, and big data? Just to give you a very simple definition that I feel works here. In terms of AI, there are some parts, there are some elements that make artificial intelligence the way it is. Starting from deep learnings to neural networks. In our mind, we have neurons, right, which works, which understands, which try to find patterns. Similarly, first two tabs that you see here, deep learnings and neural networks, they work in a way where they try to correlate in terms of what the data complex, what the dependencies are, what the precedent is, what the data patterns look like. So in first two elements, a machine is built in a way where such mechanisms are built in the machine which works just like a human brain. Coming to machine learning, it is something that we have seen earlier. It is something that learns with the repetitive task that they do. And finally, artificial intelligence that makes it up all. Coming to big data is a term that was coined somewhere around year 2000 with the explosion of the data that we have seen. And how do you define a big data, right? There are four things that makes it happen. Starting from volume of the data, we have seen enough of data which Ritesh covered in his slide. More than 6 billion mobile users, right, across the globe. And there is a data that captures all of it. There is a velocity. What does velocity means? When our car is driven, there are more than 100 sensors that capture the analysis of all this and which you see on the dashboard of your car. So when the live streaming of data happens, how the analysis takes place is something that is covered in the big data. Variety. Kabir talked about a point that we're sitting here and our apps are capturing everything that we do. You know Google Fit, the app that we use for our health tracking purpose? There are more than 420 million apps that sends data to those kind of apps to give them the final sort of output. So that is the kind of variety of data that big data handles. And finally, veracity. Veracity is to deal with the uncertainty of data. A study says US has lost almost $3 trillion because of the uncertainty or the wrong data that they had. And that's pretty much the same reason I'm sure many of us, when we approach our business leaders, we find a situation where 1 out of 3 would always say that the data that you have presented is not so correct. So veracity is to deal with the uncertainty of data. So these two things to keep in mind as I move forward and talk about the journey from manual to automation in terms of budgeting and forecasting. There are 3 things that makes this entire process complete. So you start with gathering your data, you start with gathering your past, consolidate it, bring the external intelligence into the entire exercise, and then validate the same with your business leaders, right? Because at the end of the day, this has to be owned by the sales, this has to be owned by the business. Where do we stand in terms of the entire journey of this automation or the AI that we're talking about? First, in terms of gathering the data or consolidation, where a lot of manual efforts used to happen almost a decade or 1.5 decades back. Today, you have 85% of it or more than that being done by machine. So our people don't spend time in terms of consolidating what is past. Coming to external intelligence, this is to do with the entire industry, right? It's not only how your company is growing. How's the country's GDP growing? How's the industry growing? How's the competition doing? What is the change in the customer behavior? What is the change in the sector if you are a B2B company of your customers? All those intelligence. Still, there is a way to go where we have around 20 to 25%. And again, I'm talking it as an average. There may be organizations where this ratio goes up. But on an average, there are 20 to 25% of the portion that comes from AI. Rest of it is being done by the human. And finally, the last bit, validation, where you liaise with your sales folks, where you liaise with your business leaders, and finally make a point in terms of finalizing your process of forecasting or budgeting. 10% is the place where you have the user interface where they interact with the system and be comfortable with, but still 90% is such where the human intelligence is being used. So these 3 steps and all are at a different stage in terms of the transition to the AI. With that, some good, not so good things about it. Quickly capturing what is good. You have, this is data lake, so human error. So big data and data lake are the places that you have now. So you now don't need to go into different places and find the data. You have a big data that helps you understand or fetch or retrieve as much long back information as much you want. Data consolidation. Again, no human intervention is needed. Data consolidation is a click of button, whether you use SAP, whether you use Anaplan or any other applications that you're using. Analytics of the trends. Again, this is something completely automated with the machine learning that you do, with the intelligence that you build in your machines. Getting out analysis from the trends has become an easy job. Real-time forecasting, we all know, right? We were talking about VUCA world, Bani world. Now, budgeting is not an annual affair or forecasting is not a quarterly affair. Management wants to see the forecasting every month. Management wants to see forecasting sometimes even in the fortnight. How do you give that real-time forecasting? Unless until you have a support system like this. This is possible with the help of AI that most of the organizations are using now. And resilience, right? The last but not the least, we know after COVID, right? The entire game has changed. People are sitting somewhere doing the job. You have shared service centers. You have corporate houses doing the same work. Having AI gives you the resilience in terms of responding to the situations, responding to the exigencies that comes your way. Quickly talking about not so good things about it, it requires a huge amount of initial investment. And when I say investment, I don't mean only financial investment. In terms of people investing their time, making the system feel and work the way they can work, right? So that's a huge investment, and I'm sure different organizations have it at a different stage of maturity in their journey in terms of accepting or not accepting this. Reliability of data, again, very, very critical. How do you make sure that the data that you generate, and I was talking with one of my friends who is based out of Netherlands and works with a tech company. They said they've created a big data lake, but they don't have any crowd which comes and use that lake. So if you don't have a crowd coming there, if you don't have people who uses your data, the entire efforts of putting the data generation or data lake goes for waste. So how do you create the reliability of the data is very important. Agility to learn the new patterns, that's something still a place where we have to reach. For example, you have an organization which works with some sectors, some segments, some business units in place. Tomorrow you decide to change the entire structure. And again, can you go back to the old data and restructure everything back? The answer may not be so true. So that's where how do you make sure that your data that you have is agile enough to accommodate to the new changes that comes is very important. More internal than external, all of us know the data that we have in AI, the data that we have with us is more internal. We saw something coming out from ChatGPT as well. But how reliable it is a journey that we have to do. Integration is the key. We have a lot of such systems which come and operate in silos, but having a system which operates in silo may not be really efficient. What would make more sense is for us to integrate right from demand planning to your operational planning to your financial forecasting, linking it with your sales funnel, right? That's what will give you the real fun of automation. Last slide, do's and don'ts, what I suggest. If you start the journey or you're at a mid stage of the journey, make sure you set the tone right at the top itself so that it flows down well in the organization. You think comprehensive, right? It's not only a financial forecasting. Everyone has to come together to make it happen, whether it is sales, whether it is supply chain, whether it is any other vertical of the business. So think comprehensive, involve everyone. As I said, stakeholders need to be part of this journey. It can't be done just by team finance or the CFOs of the organization. The entire leadership team has to be part of it. Upskilling, Ritesh picked it up. It's very important. At least 10% of your finance organization should be very tech savvy and someone who can drive these changes. Data confidentiality and availability, Amazon Web Services, you have massive cloud computing tools available, but sometimes to be cheaper, to be faster, there are cloud computing tools which are not so reliable, so don't get into trap of that. Data server and audit trails, I'm sure all of you know there are regulatory changes happening where you might need to have data servers located in India. How do you keep that in mind as you innovate in this space? How do you manage the audit trails, right? When you exchange emails, when you share the files, there is an audit trail available. But when you implement a system like this, how is that you're going to ensure the audit trail is available is something the regulators are watching, so keep that in mind. What you shouldn't do, just 2-3 things. Don't just join the race. I'm sure we all are excited about the AI. We all are excited about how the machine learning can help us. My piece of advice, take a conscious call. As I said, every organization is at a different stage of maturity, different stage of their journey. So give it a time if you really want to make a wise call. Don't completely eliminate human bias. As I said, human bias is important in this entire game. You can't just drive things with the basis of what machine says. Keep that in mind, but build the human bias as you go forward and draw a right balance as I started with. I am good with this. Moving on to the last slide, how many of us use GPay or Paytm? So I'm not going to charge you for this session. This barcode is for you to scan and connect with me on LinkedIn. That's me. Thank you for being the patient listeners. Thank you.